At my grandmother's hospital bed, I held her hand while she whispered, "Thank you for being here when no one else would." Moments later, my cousin burst in, pushed me aside, and said, "Smile for the pictures, Granny only wants the pretty ones." After she passed, they plastered those photos everywhere, erasing me entirely. 2 years later, I was the only one mentioned in her secret will they never knew existed. I wasn't even supposed to be in town that week. I'd taken time off work because Granny's doctor called me personally. Said she didn't have long. I'd already been driving in from Asheville every other weekend for 6 months, sometimes more when she had those bad nights. I was the only one who still showed up. The only one who bathed her when the aides quit. Who fed her when her hands shook too much. Who sat with her when she forgot where she was and started crying because she thought her mother had just died again. So when the doctor said, "This is it," I packed a bag, called out of work, and drove the 3.5 hours back to Hickory, North Carolina, knowing this would be the last time. When I got to the hospital, it was quiet. The halls smelled like bleach and old coffee. Granny's room was dim, just the heart monitor blinking slow and steady. Her skin looked thin, almost see-through. She barely had enough energy to open her eyes, but she squeezed my hand when I took it. That's when she whispered, "Thank you for being here, when no one else would." And just like that, I started crying. I didn't want her to see, but I couldn't help it. All I could say was, "I'm here, Granny. I'm right here." Then the door swung open. I knew who it was before I turned. Perfume that smelled like a Macy's ad, fake nails clicking on her phone screen, and that sing-song voice she always used when she wanted attention. Kaylee. My cousin. My aunt's perfect daughter. The one who hadn't shown up for a single hospital visit in the last year. Who spent more time on TikTok than in real life. She came in wearing high heels like she was going to a party. She saw me holding Granny's hand and actually rolled her eyes. Then she said it, "Smile for the pictures, Granny only wants the pretty ones." She didn't even look at Granny. She pushed me aside, literally shoved my shoulder and started snapping selfies. She fluffed Granny's pillow, angled the phone just right, and plastered a fake smile across her face. She leaned in, pressed her cheek to Granny's pale skin, and took at least 6 pictures. Granny didn't even open her eyes. I didn't say anything. I wanted to yell. To scream. But I just stepped back. I knew arguing would only upset Granny, and that was the last thing I wanted. An hour later, she was gone. And Kaylee, she didn't cry. She just said, "I'll post the photos tonight. They'll get so many likes." Granny looked so peaceful. The next few weeks were hell. Kaylee and her mom, my Aunt Denise, ran the show. They made a big deal about the family matriarch passing. They printed posters of Kaylee's hospital selfies and put them up at the funeral. Not a single picture of me. Not one mention that I'd been Granny's caretaker the last year. She was like a second mother to Kaylee, Aunt Denise kept saying. Over and over, like it was rehearsed. Meanwhile, I watched strangers come up to Kaylee at the funeral and tell her how strong she was. They hugged her. Told her Granny was lucky to have her. All based on a lie. I gave the first eulogy. Only because Granny had listed me as executor in the old will. But even then, I got side eyes from Aunt Denise and her church friends like I was stealing the spotlight. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't know about the real will. It started almost a year earlier. Granny had been frustrated about the family. She didn't trust them. She didn't like how Denise talked about selling the house before she was even gone. She hated how Kaylee only visited when she wanted something for Instagram. One night, after dinner, she sat me down and said, "I don't want those vultures touching what I built. If something happens, I need you to do right by me." I thought she meant keep the house clean or make sure her dogs were taken care of. I didn't expect what came next. She told me she'd written a private will. One no one knew about. She had it witnessed and notarized by her old friend Mr. Connors, the retired hardware store guy who lived 2 streets over. She said she wanted me to have everything. Not because she loved me more, but because I was the only one there when she needed someone. I didn't think about it again until 2 weeks after the funeral. That's when Connors called me. He told me he had something for me. Said Granny left instructions, and it was time. I went to his house that same day. He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was the secret will signed, dated, witnessed, and fully legal. Granny left me everything. The house. The land in Arkansas. Her jewelry. Her car. The remaining savings account. Everything. And at the bottom of the will was a handwritten note that hit me like a punch to the gut. They only wanted pictures. You gave me presents. That's worth more than all their fake tears. Please fight for what's yours. So I did. I didn't waste time. The day after I got the will from Mr. Connors, I went straight to a probate lawyer in Hickory. Small office, wood-paneled walls, smelled like old coffee and files. But the guy knew his stuff. His name was Randall Moore. Ex-military. No nonsense. I slid the envelope across his desk and said, "This is her real will. The family doesn't know it exists." He looked it over, flipping slowly through each page. When he got to the witness signatures Connors and his wife, he nodded. "This is solid," he said. "You want to challenge the public will?" "Yes," I said. "I want the truth to come out." He paused. "You know this won't be clean. Once this hits court, it's war." I nodded. "Then it's war." The court filing went in a week later. Aunt Denise was served first. Then Kaylee. Then the rest of the family. I thought they'd call, maybe try to talk it out. Nope. Instead, Kaylee went nuclear. She posted a long, dramatic Facebook post about how I was trying to steal from my own family, and how Granny's real wish was for Kaylee to have the house she grew up in. "Some people only show up when they smell money," she wrote. It got hundreds of likes. Comments from people I didn't even know calling me greedy, selfish, cold-hearted. I stayed silent. Let them run their mouths. I had something stronger than clout. I had proof. The first court hearing was 3 weeks later. Kaylee showed up in designer heels and a white dress, like she was on her way to a baby shower. Aunt Denise had that smug church lady face, lips pinched, eyes full of fake sorrow. I sat with Mr. Moore and watched them fall apart when the judge read the real will into the record. Denise actually gasped. Kaylee turned red. Their lawyer tried to argue that Granny wasn't of sound mind when she made the second will. But Connors and his wife both took the stand. They testified Granny was sharp, clear, and very deliberate. She had even talked through each decision why she didn't trust Denise, why she felt Kaylee had used her image for sympathy. When Connors read aloud Granny's final note about fighting for what's yours, Kaylee stood up in court and screamed. She was manipulated. "That's not fair." The judge ordered her to sit down or leave. Denise tried to push for mediation. I said no. Let it go to trial. 2 months later, while we were waiting for the final ruling, I came home to find my tires slashed. All 4. There was a note on my windshield in lipstick, "Greedy bitch." I didn't need to guess who did it. Kaylee had been spiraling for weeks. Her influencer deals were drying up. People started asking questions when court documents went public. Turns out, folks don't like being lied to about grief for likes. I didn't respond. Not even when she sent me a DM that said, "Hope you rot in that house alone. Granny would hate you." But I wasn't mad. Because I knew something else she didn't. Granny had one more secret. She owned a second property. It was a small cabin up in Avery County, on the edge of Pisgah Forest. She hadn't mentioned it in the old will, and no one in the family even knew it existed. But it was in the new will. Full deed, clean title, everything in her name, and now mine. I drove up there one weekend just to see it. The air smelled like pine. No cell service. Inside, it was dusty but solid. A few family pictures on the wall, most of them from before Kaylee was even born. In the back closet, I found a locked box. Inside? Letters. Dozens of them. From Granny to me. Some were never sent. Some were things she must have written when she was scared or angry. But they all said the same thing: I don't want them near this place. This is yours now. Keep it safe. So I started thinking. If Kaylee was willing to erase me from Granny's death, maybe it was time I erased her from something bigger. The court ruled in my favor. Judge Lawson declared the second will valid and enforceable. The house, the land, the jewelry, the savings, all of it legally mine. The cabin too. Everything Granny had was transferred over to me within 30 days. When the ruling came down, Aunt Denise didn't even look at me. She grabbed Kaylee by the arm and stormed out of the courtroom like it was beneath her. Kaylee didn't cry. She just glared at me. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. I knew what she was saying though: you're dead to me. And I was fine with that. What I didn't expect was what happened next. 2 weeks after the court decision, I started getting calls. First from local news, then a couple bloggers. Somehow the story had gotten out. Maybe someone in the courthouse leaked it, or maybe Kaylee opened her big mouth one too many times. But it was everywhere. Influencer loses inheritance after secret will found. Granddaughter cut out of will after posting hospital selfies. People ate it up. Kaylee's sponsors started pulling out. Her follower count dropped by thousands. One of her brand deals, some fake eyelash company, cut ties in a public statement. I found out later she tried to sue for defamation, but she didn't have a leg to stand on. And then she showed up at my door. It was a Wednesday afternoon. Rain coming down in sheets. I was in the middle of clearing out the front room of Granny's house when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there she was. Soaked. Mascara running. No camera in sight. "You happy now?" she said. "You got everything. You win." I didn't answer. Just waited. She stepped closer. "I'm about to lose my apartment. I don't even have money to finish school. Mom's got medical bills," and she stopped talking when she saw my face. I wasn't smug. I wasn't laughing. I was just done. "You want me to feel bad?" I said. "After what you did? After the pictures, the posts, the lies?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. She didn't have anything left to say. So I shut the door. She didn't knock again. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came the following month when I got a letter from a lawyer in Asheville. I almost didn't open it. Thought it was junk. But inside was a notice: petition to contest the real will on grounds of undue influence. Filed by Aunt Denise. She wasn't done. The petition claimed I had manipulated Granny during a vulnerable state, that I'd forced her to change her will to exclude the rest of the family. She claimed I'd isolated her, withheld care, and brainwashed her into giving me everything. It was all lies. Straight up fiction. But the thing about court? It doesn't matter if it's true. If you make it loud enough, it sticks. And Aunt Denise was playing dirty. Her lawyer started dragging my name through the mud. Said I had a criminal record I didn't. Claimed I had financial motives for moving and I never did. They even tried to subpoena text messages from my phone. I was drowning in legal bills. Fighting her meant hiring experts, getting more documents, pulling nurses and doctors into depositions. Then something happened I didn't expect. Kaylee emailed me. Subject line: "I want to talk." I stared at it for a full hour. Inside, she said her mom had gone too far. Said she didn't agree with the second lawsuit. Said she had information that could help me but only if I met her in person. I didn't trust her. But I was running out of options. So I agreed. We met at a small diner on the edge of town. Neutral ground. She looked tired. Smaller somehow. I'm not here to fix anything, she said first. I still think you're cold. But my mom is worse. She doesn't care who she ruins. Then she handed me a flash drive. She made me delete stuff off Granny's computer before the will went public. I saved a copy. I didn't say thank you. Just took it. Later that night, I opened it. Inside were video files. Grainy clips from the security camera Granny kept in her living room, pointing at the door. Some were from the week before she died. One of them showed Aunt Denise. She was yelling. Something about getting what she's owed. About how Granny better set things straight before she dies or else. And then Granny, in her hospital chair, said clear as day, "Get out of my house. You're not in my will for a reason." That clip would change everything. I brought the flash drive to my lawyer the next morning. He watched the video 3 times, stone-faced. Then he looked at me and said, "This ends now." That same day, we filed a motion to dismiss Aunt Denise's petition and attached the footage as evidence. It was a bombshell. The court hadn't seen anything like it. Clear, time-stamped proof that not only was Granny of sound mind, but that she explicitly told Denise she wasn't in the will and why. Within a week, Denise's lawyer backed off. Tried to settle. We said no. The judge reviewed the new evidence and threw the whole case out with prejudice. That meant Denise couldn't come back and try again. But that wasn't the part that hit hardest. The judge also sanctioned her for filing a false claim. Said it was malicious and intended to harass and defame the rightful beneficiary, me. She was fined. Publicly. It made the local paper. And Kaylee? She was named in the initial suit. Now she was tied to it permanently. Even if she'd tried to walk it back, it was too late. Her online brand was dead. After the dust settled, I didn't feel good. Not really. I had everything Granny left me, but the price was high. My family hated me. I barely talked to my brother anymore. Friends I grew up with stopped returning calls. People had picked sides. They saw a fight over money, not the truth behind it. But I had one last thing to do. I packed up Granny's old boxes, drove up to the cabin in Pisgah Forest, and opened the last envelope I'd found in that locked chest. Inside was a handwritten message: "If you're reading this, they've come for what's not theirs. You stood your ground, like I knew you would. But don't let this place be your prison. Let it be your peace." I stayed there for 3 days. No phone. No noise. Just quiet. Then I made a choice. I sold the main house in Hickory. Got a good price for it. Enough to pay off my legal bills, stash some away, and start fresh. I gave Kaylee an offer one time only. $5,000. Just enough to cover her tuition or rent. No apology, no strings. She never responded. 2 weeks later, she went live on a stream and told thousands of strangers how I paid her off to stay quiet. They called her a liar. Said they'd seen the court records. That's when she finally disappeared offline. Aunt Denise filed for bankruptcy 6 months later. As for me, I kept the cabin. Fixed it up myself. New roof, new wiring, kept the wood stove. It's quiet up here. No visitors, no cameras, no fake smiles. Just trees and wind and the feeling that, for once, the story ended the way it should have. I don't feel proud of how it went down. I could have handled some things better. Maybe I should have confronted Kaylee at the hospital. Maybe I should have shared the will with the whole family instead of taking it straight to court. But then again, they didn't want the truth. They wanted a photo op. And in the end, they got erased. Just like they did to me.